Henry Sidgwick, 1838 to 1900, was one of the leading moral philosophers of the 19th century, known for his deep intellectual rigor and his commitment to improving human understanding of ethics and moral philosophy. His most famous work, The Methods of Ethics, remains one of the most important texts in ethical theory, particularly in the realm of utilitarianism, and his contributions to the philosophy of education and social ethics continue to influence contemporary thought. Sidgwick's life and ideas can offer valuable lessons in the pursuit of knowledge, self-improvement, and ethical decision-making. Below is a detailed account of Sidgwick's life, his contributions to philosophy, and the lessons we can draw from his work. Early life and intellectual formation. Henry Sidgwick was born on May 31, 1838, in Cambridge, England, into a family with strong intellectual connections. His father, the Reverend William Sidgwick, was a Fellow of St. John's College, Cambridge, and his mother, née Theophila, was from a family of prominent scholars. Sidgwick's upbringing fostered a love of learning and intellectual rigor, which would come to characterize his entire career. Sidgwick was educated at Eton and later at Cambridge, where he attended Trinity College. At Cambridge, he excelled in his studies and was greatly influenced by the intellectual atmosphere of the time, particularly the philosophical and theological debates surrounding the nature of morality, religion, and the emerging scientific worldview. It was here that he first encountered the works of major figures such as John Stuart Mill, Immanuel Kant, and Aristotle, whose ideas would shape much of his later thought. Sidgwick's intellectual development was marked by a strong desire to reconcile the various ethical theories of his time. He was deeply attracted to the utilitarian philosophy of John Stuart Mill, which advocated for the maximization of happiness as the ultimate moral goal, yet he also felt the need to engage critically with the assumptions underlying these ethical positions. Throughout his academic career, Sidgwick worked to integrate these ideas with the more traditional, deontological approaches to ethics, developing his unique approach to moral philosophy. 2. Philosophical contributions. 1. The Methods of Ethics. Sidgwick's most important philosophical work is undoubtedly The Methods of Ethics, first published in 1874. In this book, Sidgwick sets out to explore the foundations of ethical theory and the methods by which humans can determine what is morally right. The book is renowned for its rigorous analysis and its systematic approach to moral reasoning. One of the central themes of the Methods of Ethics is the tension between three major ethical systems: egoism, intuitionism, and utilitarianism. Sidgwick examines each system in detail, highlighting both its strengths and weaknesses, and he ultimately seeks to find a way to reconcile them or find a more satisfactory alternative. Egoism, according to Sidgwick, argues that individuals should act in their own self-interest, and that moral action is ultimately determined by what benefits the individual. While Sidgwick acknowledges that egoism has an intuitive appeal, particularly in its focus on self-preservation and personal happiness, he criticizes it for its inability to account for the moral duties we owe to others. Intuitionism holds that moral knowledge comes from our direct intuitions of right and wrong. For the intuitionist, moral judgments are self-evident and not reducible to rational argument. Sidgwick, however, is critical of this position, arguing that it relies too heavily on subjective feelings and lacks the rigorous foundations needed to guide moral action in a consistent way. Utilitarianism, the ethical theory most closely associated with Sidgwick, posits that the moral worth of an action is determined by its contribution to the overall happiness or well-being of society. Sidgwick embraced utilitarianism but also sought to refine it. He sought to clarify the concept of happiness, and argued that moral agents should make decisions that maximize overall utility, even if that sometimes requires sacrifices on their part. Sidgwick's work in the methods of ethics is notable for its attempt to find a middle ground between these theories, seeking a way to reconcile individual happiness with the welfare of society. One of his key insights is the notion of rational benevolence, where individuals, after carefully considering the evidence and the likely consequences of their actions, can make decisions that promote the greatest happiness. Sidgwick also famously discussed the dualism of practical reason, acknowledging the tension between our individual desires and the moral demands of society. This tension, Sidgwick argued, reflects a deep-seated conflict in human nature and the difficulty of making moral decisions that both promote personal happiness and align with the broader interests of society. 2. The role of reason and intuition in ethics. A major theme of Sidgwick's work was the interaction between reason and intuition in ethical decision-making. He believed that both reason and intuition had important roles to play in moral philosophy, but he was also aware of the limitations and potential biases that come with relying too heavily on either one. In his view, moral reasoning required a careful balance between intuitive moral judgments and the careful, systematic application of rational principles. Sidgwick's approach to ethics emphasizes the importance of moral consistency. Unlike some of his contemporaries, who believed that moral truths were grounded in divine command or metaphysical realities, Sidgwick thought that moral reasoning could and should be approached in a logical, empirical way. Yet, at the same time, he recognized that humans are not purely rational beings and that intuition, emotion, and social context must also play a role in moral decision-making. 3. The ethical implications of utilitarianism. Sidgwick's utilitarianism, though similar in many ways to that of his mentor John Stuart Mill, diverged in significant ways. Sidgwick was particularly concerned with the practical application of utilitarian principles, and he argued that the greatest moral challenge lay in balancing impartiality, treating all individuals' happiness equally, with the particularity of personal relationships and individual circumstances. One of the more challenging aspects of Sidgwick's philosophy is his recognition of the self-sacrificial demands that utilitarianism can place on individuals. In many situations, a utilitarian approach might require individuals to act against their own interests for the greater good, potentially leading to what Sidgwick referred to as the moral paradox of utilitarianism. Sidgwick himself struggled with this tension, as many people do when considering utilitarianism. The idea that personal happiness might sometimes need to be sacrificed for the benefit of others raises important questions about self-interest, moral duty, and the potential costs of ethical decision-making. For Sidgwick, the challenge was how to navigate the tension between personal happiness and collective welfare, ultimately advocating for an ethical life that demanded impartiality and moral rigor. 3. Sidgwick's influence on education and social ethics. In addition to his work in ethics, Sidgwick made significant contributions to the philosophy of education and social ethics. As a professor at Cambridge, Sidgwick was deeply involved in the academic community, and he sought to bring ethical reflection into the realm of education and social life. 1. The philosophy of education. Sidgwick's approach to education was shaped by his utilitarian beliefs, as he believed that education should aim to maximize the well-being of students and society as a whole. He argued that education should promote the development of both intellectual and moral faculties, preparing students not just for successful careers but also for responsible citizenship and ethical decision-making. Sidgwick was particularly interested in the role of moral education and the cultivation of virtues. In his view, the education system should nurture a student's capacity for moral reflection, critical thinking, and empathy. By doing so, education would contribute not only to the happiness of the individual but also to the broader good of society. 2. Social ethics and the role of the state. Sidgwick was also interested in the ethical implications of social and political life. He believed that the state had an important role to play in promoting the well-being of its citizens, and he supported various reforms aimed at improving social justice. He was particularly concerned with issues of poverty, inequality, and the ethical responsibilities of individuals and institutions toward the most vulnerable members of society. Sidgwick's views on social ethics were grounded in his broader utilitarian philosophy, and he believed that policies should be guided by the principle of maximizing overall happiness. In his view, social policy should not be motivated by narrow self-interest but by a commitment to promoting the common good and reducing suffering. 4. Life lessons from Henry Sidgwick's philosophy. Sidgwick's life and work provide a wealth of lessons for contemporary thinkers, scholars, and individuals seeking to live more ethically responsible lives. Some of the key lessons drawn from his philosophy include: 1. The importance of critical thinking and intellectual rigor. Sidgwick's commitment to intellectual rigor and critical thinking is one of the most important lessons we can learn from his life. He was never content to simply accept ideas without scrutinizing them carefully, and his work reflects a deep commitment to the intellectual pursuit of truth. Lesson: never stop questioning. Be willing to engage critically with the ideas you encounter, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions. 2. The need for moral consistency. Sidgwick was deeply concerned with the need for moral consistency in both theory and practice. He believed that ethical principles should not be divorced from the reality of human experience, and that moral reflection must be grounded in a commitment to fairness and impartiality. Lesson: strive for consistency in your ethical beliefs and actions. Make sure that your principles align with your actions, and aim to treat others with fairness and respect. 3. The challenge of balancing self-interest and the greater good. Sidgwick's work forces us to confront the tension between personal desires and the moral demands of society. His recognition of the sacrifices that moral action often requires speaks to the difficulty of balancing personal interests with the collective welfare. Lesson: understand that ethical living may require difficult trade-offs. While it's important to care for your own well-being, consider the impact of your actions on others and be willing to make sacrifices for the greater good. 4. Lifelong learning and growth. Sidgwick's commitment to intellectual development and his belief in the value of education underscore the importance of lifelong learning. He was not content to rest on his laurels but constantly sought to deepen his understanding of the world. Lesson: never stop learning. Personal and intellectual growth are lifelong endeavors, and you should always seek to expand your knowledge and understanding. 5. Empathy and altruism. Finally, Sidgwick's emphasis on the well-being of others and his commitment to impartial benevolence reflect a deep concern for empathy and altruism. He recognized that moral action requires not just intellectual reasoning but emotional engagement with the suffering and happiness of others. Lesson: cultivate empathy and strive to make the world a better place through your actions. Consider the well-being of others and aim to act in ways that promote collective happiness and justice. Sidgwick's relevance in the modern era. While Henry Sidgwick lived in the 19th century, his philosophical contributions remain highly relevant in the modern world. His ideas about utilitarianism, ethics, education, and the role of individuals in society continue to offer practical insights for contemporary moral dilemmas and societal challenges. Let's explore why Sidgwick's work still matters today and how his ideas can be applied to modern issues. 1. Utilitarianism in the age of global challenges. In an increasingly interconnected world, global issues such as climate change, poverty, and international conflict demand careful ethical reflection. Sidgwick's utilitarianism, with its emphasis on maximizing well-being and minimizing suffering, provides a robust framework for addressing such challenges. For example, when considering climate change, Sidgwick's ethical framework would encourage us to think about the long-term consequences of environmental degradation and the well-being of future generations. His emphasis on impartiality, treating everyone's happiness equally, would likely lead him to argue for policies that minimize harm to vulnerable populations while seeking to mitigate the impact of climate change. Lesson: in an era marked by complex global challenges, we can apply Sidgwick's utilitarianism to prioritize solutions that consider the well-being of all, including future generations. Ethical decision-making should account for long-term consequences and the collective good. 2. Ethical decision-making in a pluralistic society. Sidgwick's work addresses the complexity of moral reasoning, particularly in a world with diverse ethical systems. In modern societies, we encounter a multiplicity of worldviews, religions, and ethical systems. Sidgwick's attempt to reconcile different moral philosophies can be seen as a precursor to modern efforts to navigate pluralistic ethical landscapes. In such societies, individuals often find themselves in situations where conflicting moral values collide. Sidgwick's insistence on critical thinking and rational analysis offers a valuable approach for resolving such dilemmas. By emphasizing impartiality and fairness, his philosophy encourages dialogue and consensus building among individuals with differing values. Lesson: in a diverse world, it is crucial to approach moral conflicts with open-mindedness and reasoned debate. Sidgwick's commitment to balancing different ethical perspectives can guide us in navigating these complexities in a way that is fair and just. 3. The ethics of technology and artificial intelligence. As technology rapidly advances, the ethical implications of innovation such as artificial intelligence, AI, automation, and genetic engineering have become central concerns. Sidgwick's moral philosophy provides a framework for evaluating these issues. His focus on rational benevolence and the utilitarian principle of maximizing well-being can be applied to technological development in order to ensure that such advancements promote the common good and do not exacerbate social inequalities. For example, Sidgwick would likely be concerned with the ethical consequences of AI and automation on employment, privacy, and social equity. His utilitarian approach would suggest that technology should be developed and used in ways that maximize overall happiness, ensuring that the benefits are distributed fairly and that the potential harms, such as job displacement, are mitigated. Lesson: ethical reflection is essential as we navigate the rise of new technologies. By applying Sidgwick's principles of maximizing well-being and impartiality, we can guide the development of technology toward outcomes that benefit all members of society. 6. Sidgwick's role in shaping modern utilitarianism. Although John Stuart Mill is often regarded as the central figure in the development of utilitarianism, Sidgwick's work was instrumental in refining and expanding utilitarian thought. His intellectual contributions provided clarity to the complexities of utilitarian theory and helped it evolve into a more sophisticated ethical system. Sidgwick's efforts to address the rationality of moral obligation and the concept of moral intuitions continue to influence contemporary utilitarian thinkers. 1. Sidgwick's contribution to ethical calculus. Sidgwick's exploration of the utilitarian calculus, the process of weighing the benefits and harms of actions to determine the most morally correct choice, has significant implications for modern moral philosophy. By carefully analyzing moral dilemmas and seeking the greatest overall good, Sidgwick elevated the utilitarian approach beyond its early, more simplistic forms. His systematic approach to ethics provided the groundwork for modern moral economists, philosophers, and ethicists who continue to grapple with the complexities of calculating well-being and making moral decisions that account for diverse factors. Lesson: Sidgwick's emphasis on the importance of careful moral calculation is a reminder that ethical decisions require more than just instinct or emotion. We must consider all available evidence and take a rational approach to achieving the greatest good. 2. Sidgwick and modern policy debates. Sidgwick's application of utilitarian principles to public policy continues to resonate in modern political debates. Issues like healthcare, income inequality, and social justice are central to contemporary political discourse, and Sidgwick's work provides a framework for evaluating policies in terms of their overall utility. His approach would encourage policymakers to consider not only the economic costs but also the social and ethical consequences of their decisions. For example, in the debate over universal health care, Sidgwick's utilitarianism would argue in favor of policies that maximize public health and reduce suffering for the greatest number of people. His framework would suggest that the well-being of the most vulnerable members of society should be a primary concern in policymaking. Lesson: Sidgwick's work challenges us to view policy decisions through the lens of collective well-being. Ethical policy should prioritize the common good, particularly for those who are most marginalized or disadvantaged. 7. Sidgwick's personal life and ethical living. In addition to his philosophical work, Sidgwick's personal life offers valuable insights into how one might live ethically and consistently with one's values. He was known for his modesty, integrity, and dedication to his work and personal relationships, embodying the principles of impartiality and self-sacrifice that he espoused in his philosophy. Sidgwick's life was not without its struggles, but he remained committed to his vision of moral clarity and ethical conduct. 1. Sidgwick and the Cambridge Apostles. Sidgwick was a member of the Cambridge Apostles, a secret society known for its intellectual debates and discussions. This group, which included some of the leading thinkers and writers of the time, fostered an environment of intellectual engagement and moral reflection. Sidgwick's participation in the Apostles exemplifies his commitment to dialogue and the sharing of ideas as essential components of ethical and intellectual development. His role in the Apostles also speaks to the importance of cultivating intellectual community and engaging with others who share a passion for philosophical inquiry. Through his involvement, Sidgwick both influenced and was influenced by others, further refining his own views in the process. Lesson: engage in intellectual communities that challenge and stimulate your thinking. Thoughtful, open-minded dialogue is a key to refining one's own ethical views and expanding one's understanding of the world. 2. Sidgwick's personal integrity. Sidgwick's integrity and consistency in both his personal and professional life provide a powerful example of ethical living. He was known for his dedication to his work, his commitment to teaching, and his efforts to maintain ethical standards in both his personal and academic relationships. This consistency between thought and action is an important lesson for all who seek to live an ethical life. Lesson: strive for integrity in all aspects of your life. Ensure that your actions align with your principles and values, whether in public or private life. Ethical living is not just about abstract principles but about real, everyday conduct. 8. The lasting legacy of Henry Sidgwick. Sidgwick's legacy is multifaceted. As a philosopher, his contributions to ethics, utilitarianism, and the philosophy of education have had a profound influence on both his contemporaries and later thinkers. His work continues to be a point of reference for scholars in moral philosophy, economics, political theory, and education. Additionally, his commitment to rigorous intellectual inquiry and ethical integrity provides a model for anyone seeking to live a thoughtful and meaningful life. 1. Sidgwick and modern moral philosophy. Sidgwick's lasting influence can be seen in contemporary ethical thought. His critical examination of utilitarianism and his attempt to reconcile it with other ethical systems paved the way for the development of modern consequentialist ethics. Scholars and ethicists continue to engage with Sidgwick's work, refining and adapting his ideas to new moral challenges. His contributions to moral psychology, moral epistemology, and political ethics continue to shape debates in these fields. Lesson: engage with the work of past thinkers, as their contributions can offer valuable perspectives for addressing contemporary moral and ethical issues. Sidgwick's ideas provide a foundation for modern ethical discourse. 2. Sidgwick's vision of a better society. Finally, Sidgwick's vision of a society based on rational benevolence and utilitarian principles remains a powerful ideal. While we may never fully realize a world where everyone acts according to the principle of maximizing well-being, Sidgwick's philosophy encourages us to strive toward that ideal through thoughtful ethical reflection and practical action. His commitment to the common good, impartiality, and moral integrity provides a vision of a better society, one in which individuals and institutions work toward the happiness and flourishing of all. Lesson: aim for a society where the well-being of all is prioritized. While we may not reach perfection, the pursuit of justice, equality, and compassion can lead to meaningful social progress. Conclusion: Henry Sidgwick's life and philosophy offer profound lessons that remain deeply relevant in the modern world. His commitment to intellectual rigor, his exploration of the complexities of ethical decision-making, and his unwavering dedication to the well-being of others provide a powerful model for contemporary living. Sidgwick's work challenges us to think critically, act with integrity, and engage with the world in a way that promotes the greatest happiness for all. Through his writings, we can continue to draw inspiration and guidance as we navigate the moral challenges of the 21st century.